I felt really, really good about it. One, you finally had Vladimir Tarasenko get a goal in this series. Robert Thomas finally getting a goal in this series. Pavel Buchnevich looked fantastic. So that line is humming. That's exactly what you want going into this game. And I feel like Ville Husso really needed that game. And I felt like that was a huge confidence boost going into this game 6 tonight because he was a little shaky at the beginning, which everybody was in that first period. But I felt like he really pulled it together like the rest of the team did. And they were all working in unison, and that's what they just keep saying over and over again, and that's what they needed going into this game 6 tonight.
Yeah, even like Toropchenko, like he's like, look, man, you know you're having a good game is when Chief puts you out there at the end of the game when you're in desperate mode. That's when you know he's like confident with you, and it worked. Yeah. Every time he does that, like he's good at just like feeling out like what's going on with the guys, who's on their game, who's got a little bit of energy. He puts out Bosey, he puts out Toropchenko at the end of the game. They got 7 minutes of ice time. They knew that they were ready to go, and it always works. I don't know how the hell he does it, because a lot of times, man, I've been on a lot of teams where you try to mix things up, and it smacks you in the face. So,
well, and also too, I don't know. I'm sure you guys have like beaten this whole week, but just also all the stuff that played out with Nazem Kadri.
Oh God,
how nuts was that this week? So, if you guys don't mind, I just have like a little bit of a story because this was interesting to me. You know, just seeing how all of that played out from a media perspective, because I was able to sit in both media rooms, so I was able to see this play out. First of all, nothing against the Avalanche media people, but I just really noticed, I saw the power of journalism and how you can really change a narrative by the way that you ask questions and the way that you portray a story. And with me, I mean, look, I'm not going to be perfect, but I like to at least just put the facts out there and the whole question as well. So I was in that room whenever they asked Craig Berube about Nazem Kadri. One, you have to think about this. If you've been in a lot of Berube media sessions, when it's game day, he's locked in.
Oh, yeah.
It's not anything personal. He keeps things short and simple. So his no comment, I didn't think anything of it. You know, I was just like, okay, you know, that's Berube being Berube. It's not that he's dismissing the threats against Kadri. It's just that he's focused. They're moving on because they said over and over again, we're moving on. We're focusing. You know, yes, we lost Bennington. Because he was thinking of from losing a Bennington perspective, I could tell. And then I go into that other media session afterwards, after that game. And, you know, they quite literally, one of the media members for the Avs framed the question in this way, saying, what did you think about Berube dismissing racist threats against Kadri? Literally framed it. And so, Jim, and all you guys in this room know, when you frame a question that way, you know what you're doing, right?
Right.
And so the coach had a fantastic answer. He was like, I didn't think anything of it.
Bednar.
Yes.
Yep.
And he was like, I didn't think anything of it. You know, all that kind of stuff was really defending Berube. They still ran with it. And I looked at their social media accounts. I kid you not, even another Avs media member said, was this an example of good versus evil with good winning tonight? That was when that game. I literally sat there and I looked at some of the other St. Louis media members. I was like, is this serious?
Oh, my God.
Is this absolutely serious? And so then I see that play out on social media, and I know that, you know, there was things brought up from Berube's past and all that kind of stuff, but it was just really interesting to see. I think sometimes we forget as journalists how much power that we have to control a narrative of a story, and to see how they handled that and the way that they blew up. Look, I think everybody can agree that the threats and racist comments against Nazem Kadri were not okay, but it's also not fair to pretend that that you can base a whole fan base on a few bad eggs. That's not fair.
And the team. I agree.
And the team. And to make it out to be this good versus evil, like the Blues are these like terrible people, that's so nuts. But that's how the Avs media quite literally, not all of them, but sitting through those media sessions were framing it, and I could not believe it. I was shocked.
I think that's how media is. We were saying on this show how odd it was because it was the Blues lose their goalie on a questionable play. Cam and I both said we didn't think it was an illegal hit, but he could have probably stopped. But
he could have probably stopped.
So the Blues goalie's out. You know, the fan base loses the guy that really they felt would be the difference maker.
He was
by the guy with a track record of doing that. And not only we were the victims, St. Louis, you know, like all of a sudden we were the ones that were victimized. I'm talking about us as a city and, a fan base and everything. And then based on some tweets, it got flipped.
Yes,
St. Louis were the bad guy. Then he went out and gets a hat trick.
Oh, God.
And we were watching the post game, and everyone was like applauding him, like, you did it, you fought evil.
Yes.
And
it was wild.
And we became suddenly, as a city, the bad guys, even though everyone in the city would say, you can't tweet stuff like that.
Look,
it's vile.
It was so wild for me to see that in person play out because, I think, look, if you're going to ask a question like that, put the whole question out there in context with, the answer and then to just flip around, like you said, and then to turn it into like, look, I was looking at those certain media people's like Twitter accounts. And like you said, they completely changed the narrative. And that same guy that said the good versus evil also I looked at his Twitter account, was doing a whole campaign against Jordan Binnington and how he should get looked into by the NHL player safety because of the water bottle incident. And I was like, the water bottle didn't even touch him. And you don't know for a fact it was Binnington, but it was wild to see that play out. And I was just shocked that was even happening. And I mean, I don't know. I'm glad the Blues won because that was really frustrating to sit back and see like St. Louis be portrayed in that way when it's like you're not even getting your facts straight here and you're not portraying this correctly.
And the beautiful thing was because the way the Blues came back and because it looked like, first of all, they're down 3-0, then McKinnon goes in unscathed and scores. Yeah. Everyone thought it was over and the Blues keep fighting. Suddenly I thought like, the general fandom in the NHL, were back on the Blues side.
Yeah.
Like suddenly we weren't the evil people again.
They didn't have that article. They were all waiting to get that.
They were waiting for it. I mean, it was just wild to see. And I don't know. It was hard for me as like a media member because I really wanted to go on a Twitter rant myself. But then also you worry about, it's like you have that fear of like, I'm not standing for the comments that were made. I saw what Nazem Kadri's wife posted. I'm not standing for those comments. I'm condemning it as well. But to pretend a whole fan base is like that is not fair.
Here's why I'm convinced why this happens. Is there some virtue signaling? 100%. Are there some people that truly believe what they're writing? 100%. And look, there is racism and there's also faux racism. Both those things exist. I am 100% convinced that the reason that racism in many cases, and in this case, a large part of this, it's due to profit. It's due to the fact that if you are in the media, if your story, if your take has racism in it, it is going to be watched more. Yep. It is going to be read more. We all know this. That's why I try to craft headlines in different ways, but I know 100%. I showed you guys the bar graph.
Yep.
I showed you the bar graph of the activity on just Blues versus Avalanche. First 2 games, just boring hockey. Okay, people are watching at this level.
Yeah.
Guess what? When now it's hockey with racism, stratosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Views and watch time through the roof. You know that if you put racism in your headline, that happened the other day, by the way. We talked about Mike Schilt, the whole deal with the coach from the Giants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this going in. I try not to take advantage of situations, but I know in my brain 100%. If I post a video with Mike Schilt talking about racism with that coach, I know it's going to do 15 times better than a normal baseball story. That is 100% true.
And I think you're dead on with reporters asking questions. That goes on with polling, too.
Yeah.
If you ask the question in a certain way,
yeah,
you know the response. I always go, and I think we all do it a little bit, not with a negative intent. I always go back to this. When March was here and I wanted to do a story that he's the mad scientist. Nothing bad, but he was crazy. So I went to Ryan Pickett, who I picked up a tell, will always repeat a little of the question that you ask him in his answer. So I said, Mike Martz, obviously a good coach, but he's a little different. He's crazy. And then he said, he's crazy. And I was like, got
him.
Yeah.
No harm in that one. But it kind of plays into, as a reporter, I don't call it, you're a journalist. I'm just a hag. But as a reporter, like you can control a narrative with the way you ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
And also, you're the one that edits the sound, so you can double enhance the fact that you're going to get whatever narrative you're after, you are going to get it. We see that all the time.
Well, it's like when you sit in these media sessions, like with anybody, you could tell it's like, oh, okay, I could tell what their story is going to be today. It's very like clear with the way that you're asking questions and stuff. And so when that happened, I was just shocked because I don't know. And it's like, it puts you in such a tough spot because like you said, I think way too hard about like, okay, is this question going to come off, in the wrong way? Like, I hope that they know that I have good intentions behind this or like, different things like that. And just to see them in such an emotional, because here's the other messed up part of this, it's such an emotional moment in these game atmospheres, especially the playoffs. So you're really playing off people's emotions with that too, with the players, with the coaches, all that kind of stuff. And I just couldn't believe that was even happening and that it was being spun into that St. Louis is terrible. They have, like these are just a bunch of racist people. They don't care about threats against Kadri. Could you imagine people defending? Okay, nothing. Once again, it's like you have to say this beforehand. Like, once again, not defending any of the threats against him. It's not okay. It's a terrible thing that happens in sports. We all know it. It's a terrible thing. But at the end of the day, could you imagine defending Nazem Kadri?
Oh, God. Well, we didn't. We didn't know on a Hot Take Central.
And also weaponizing a no comment,
Yes,
and not knowing the context,
exactly.
Like Berube has done that. He's not going to get involved with distractions because he's locked in, as
and
you
he's
said.
Moving on.
And I think back to the time when Jordan Hicks, Bud Norris was a racist.
Oh, yeah.
And everything.
Yep.
And Jordan Hicks said no comment, and they put that Jordan Hicks said no comment, implying that he agreed with that. When context
sometimes you can just have no comment.
And Jordan Hicks was a young player who said no comment a lot because he didn't want to answer something that would get him in trouble with the veterans. Had nothing to do with any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And the context of that was left out. So the no comment was used to further a narrative that was in the story.
It's crazy. And even like tweeting things out like, I don't even like anything, even if it's a little controversial on Twitter. We just come on here and talk about it. Like, we'll talk about anything on here. But if you go on there, sometimes you look at Twitter like, God, I want to pounce back on this guy a little bit with something. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. No way. And
that's why I was even afraid to like put that all out there because one, it's something that needs to like be fully explained.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be somebody who sat through all those media sessions. And I was like, if I put this on Twitter, they're gonna be like, oh look, here's another St. Louis media person.
Well, we would have had your back, girl.
Racism and threats.
We would have had your back like you can't believe, just so you know.
Yeah, but
you love racism?
Oh, I'm tweeting that out right now. Look at Brooke just said.
All of a sudden, look, Charlie just thought of a YouTube headline. Right. Brooke Grizzly loves racism.
Yeah, so get hits.
So I think the amazing thing was it's died down a little. So some idiots tweeted stuff that everyone thinks is everyone thinks is vile. I mean, unless you're an idiot, right?
Unless you're an idiot.
But that became the story of this playoff series. Where was it a storyline? Sure. But was it the overriding narrative?
No.
It shouldn't have been.
Well, and also I think from the Blues perspective, the Avs were the ones that brought it up as an issue, and so did Nazem Kadri. And then they turned it over to the St. Louis City Police. So from the Blues perspective, they're like, okay, this is getting handled. Let's focus on playoffs. Yeah. Like the Avs were doing.
What do you want Berube to do?
Yeah.
What do you want him to go bang on doors? No, he's got a job to do.
Yeah.
But this is why, after that no comment, I was the one person in this room, and I didn't say, oh my gosh, Craig Berube, he's terrible. No. I didn't say that. I said, yes, it would have been reasonable for him to make a comment because you know how a no comment is going to be spun. And I also agree and believe Craig Berube in saying, because he doesn't strike me as a big Instagram guy. Yeah. I believe that he didn't know the whole story, which is why it was important for him before the game the other day to clarify and provide context.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't say Craig Berube's terrible. I said, yeah, you know what? I know how the media works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I said, yeah, it would have been reasonable for him to comment on that, which is why 2 days later he did. Nobody's saying Craig Berube's terrible. I'm just saying some context and explanation. It really dilutes a lot of the crap. Like if you explain yourself, then people can't weaponize your no comment.
I think that's a fair point. I think what happened, and once again, is like whenever he said the no comment, I didn't think anything of it. And I think a lot of St. Louis people didn't think anything of it because we're so used to that with Craig Berube. But then I feel like that's the other issue with playoffs is that you have other media members coming into these rooms who don't know you and don't hear you on a regular basis. And so, yes, maybe you don't want to have a comment. And look, he doesn't have to have a comment on it, but like you said, just getting out of the way, especially in this day and age with things, because they did weaponize it against him. And then Kadri just went and had a freaking amazing game, which is like the last thing you want, right?
Well, they were pissed at David Perron for cross-checking him.
Oh, my God.
They were pissed at David Perron for cross-checking Kadri after he just... they thought that they booed him. They booed Perron in...
when Kadri started it?
Yeah, when Kadri started it. Right in front of the benches there. And that's why I said, I'm glad when they were down by 3 that you turn a little psycho because they're looking at, and Kadri's chirping the whole time. He's got those bug eyes, and and no one did anything. They held it, man. And I'm telling you, they had to hold in a lot of emotion not to do something crazy, especially when it kind of got out of hand.
Well, that's the type of player he is, though, and that's what happened. Look exactly what happened. He's the type of player that wants to get under your skin, and that's just his MO. And
Perry does the same thing too. They both do the same thing, but Perry doesn't hit anybody. There's a difference when you hurt guys with hits. Like Perry's not fast enough to do that. For one, he'll whack you, he'll hook onto you, he'll chirp, but Kadri will hurt your career and like set you back, and he'll give you CTE. And there's a big difference between people that are dirty that way and these guys that, well, like I used to do it. I know how he thinks. It's a weird thing that we have in our head. Like I like doing that. And so he ain't fooling me the way he's doing that stuff. So anyway, there's a little bit of a difference.
I think he played it brilliantly.
He played it brilliantly.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. I was telling these guys.
Wow, good sir.
He did
bravo.
I kind of liked him after all. Like he played it beautifully. Yeah. But for a guy, as you say, it's his job to get under people's skin and impact the series in any way he can.
Oh, he did.
He did
exactly that.
Let's see. Serious question. Have you guys seen the the GS going on with the 49er media member Grant Coyne and the players on the team? He's purposely antagonizing players to try to provoke them into losing it for the clicks. His latest is that he touched him. I don't. Okay. One writer from the Boulder Gazette wrote an entire article about how the Blues should forfeit the entire series. Oh my! Right.
I agree with that.
The bend over cam is a complete clown.
The Blues should not. They should show up tonight.
Some writer did that
right after the national anthem.
It was probably it was for clicks. Guarantee you, it was for clicks.
Because of what was the guy's name? Twitter Pete.
Bend over.
What was that guy?
No. Oh, he got me.
Oh my god!
Did you say it?
He got me on that.
See, I didn't even
that
see
was
that.
No, I literally.
Sandwiches.
Yeah, because I literally the Boulder Gazette. What are Teddy sandwiches?
I was like,
you didn't even know.
I didn't know. I did. Listen, dude. I don't read the text. I feel bad for you.
He got me.
I saw it.
That would have got me too.
Because the first part of that, I'm like, I bet somebody did do that. They should forfeit the whole series. I would think some of those psychos would write something like that.
He's
My
sneaky.
God, he is good, man.
Sneaky.
He good. How about the Oilers winning? Hey, I'm telling you, if the Blues win, they're gonna beat the Oil, dude. I'm telling you that right now. That goal to Mike Smith in that, they're letting in 6 spot every single damn night.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you know what's interesting is, did you see that before the playoffs started, Wayne Gretzky, he did a whole prediction of how the playoffs would go, and it's pretty much panning out. Well, I think he picked the Flames to win.
Oh, okay. And
but
Blues
still,
play the Flames.
But he had the Blues going pretty far.
Brooke, the Lightning aren't going to lose, just so you know.
They aren't.
They're going to play Carolina. They're going to play the Rangers. They're going to kill them. Those two young teams. I can't see them losing. You get the best goalie in the world.
Don't you want it to be somebody else,
yes,
though?
Don't
you want it to be somebody else?
Hell yeah. But you got to think, these 7 o'clock games are kind of nice because of Patty and Florida sucking. They said they went to the Rippers the night before the game. I don't believe that. The guys wouldn't do that.
You know what's sad? Gretzky was at the Cardinal game the other day.
Yeah,
I would grab him for an
third
interview, right? Yeah. I would grab, but based on how the whole controversy had enveloped the series, this is before the Blues came back to win. It wasn't after that. I didn't want to even talk to him about hockey for fear that sort of stuff would somehow get him. I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, dude. At that point, after after not the last game, the one before, the series had become less about hockey in terms of the national narrative. It was about this.
You couldn't even interview 99 because you're worried about him getting into a jam.
I didn't want to get him in a jam.
Sharks tried that too. Sharks, when they went after Bennington, remember?
Would they? Oh, no, that was Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, that was the Jets.
That was the Jets. That was a writer. Remember 19 when Benner's first game in Winnipeg? He had to get up that morning, and there's 50,000 calls. He had to meet with Doug Armstrong. He had to meet with Craig Berube before his first playoff game ever. And to put out a fire about tweets, I don't know how many years ago, and then he still figured it out. That,
by the way,
happens, dude.
This is very random, but because you mentioned that, so that writer, who was some type of blogger,
of course,
for the Sharks, he was a San Jose reporter.
That's right. Yep.
I saw him recently on Twitter here. I saw something he said started trending. It might have been about Nazem Kadri. I can't even remember. And I go, that name sounds familiar. And I go, and that was the guy who brought up the Binnington tweets. And then if you look at this guy, he's got some very cryptic tweets about how he lost his job and he lost his health insurance and he's broke. Like, honestly, and he put it all out there on Twitter. It's the same guy. I only bring this up because I think it's interesting and I was surprised. But that guy who brought up the Binnington tweets, he's now tweeting some things that, I hope people check on him.
Okay.
And people were there
because of that.
I think the last year or so, whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
He lost his job. He lost his health insurance. He's got some issues paying some bills. I mean, he's putting this all out there on Twitter. The only reason I bring this up is because I go, I recognize that name. Who is that guy? And he was the writer who brought up the Binnington tweets in 19.
At the time, someone looked into his past tweets and found some garbage in his timeline
the case.
From years past.
They forget that they're going to look at you too.
You know what I mean?
Remember that.
They sometimes they forget they're not perfect. You might act like you're perfect whenever somebody slips up and you want to put them in a jam, but then just remember what you've done. It's all out there.
So what was the name of the guy that was quoted in the article that Twitter Pete? Who was the guy that with the racist?
Sam.
Twitter Sam,
yeah.
Bend over.
I mean, think about that. Like, and I'm sure there were other things too that Kadri had dealt with. That, no one disputes that it was awful, but to put it on an entire city and an entire
that's
fan
just
base,
not fair. And that's just something that's going on in general now, is that people just want to put people in groups, and that if one person does something wrong, then it somehow reflects on everything. And that's just not fair.
Well, the Blues took a beating when they didn't do Pride Night a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? They took a beating for that. I mean, articles out the wild were like, whoa. I remember talking, I'm like, whoa, okay. You got to just throw that in there, I guess. But then that kind of stirred up some things. And then it kind of went away. And then it's just...
This is why I say, I feel like we've talked about this so many times on here. This is why you need a TV media person just to help you on your PR team. I think that we should start our own little PR firm where we come in and help with like disastrous media events and give them advice on just how to quickly squash it.
I want human resources here. I want to get tapped on the shoulder. I want to get tapped on the shoulder and say, Cam, don't do that. That's what I want. Hey, let's go to break and let's regroup. I got to do serious NHL. Now that I got now my brain's refreshed on hockey. I appreciate that, Brooke. Great job on that, though. Everything you said, I'm like, yep.
It was really interesting.
It was just I've been like sitting on it the past few days, and it was hard just seeing that unfold in person.
And like, what do? Do you do like an Insta story and talk about it? No, you come on Hot Take Central and you talk.